China-United States trade war, 2018-present, influence. U.S. Executive Branch. U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said that the planned Chinese tariffs only reflected 0.3% of U.S. gross domestic product, and Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders stated that the moves would have short-term pain but bring long-term success. Some commentators have suggested that tariffs may be self-defeating and that renegotiating China's membership in the WTO would be more effective than tariffs. New York Fed President John Williams said on December 4, 2018, that he believes the U.S. economy will stay strong in 2019. Williams expects that increases in the interest rates will be necessary to maintain the economy. He stated, "Given this outlook of strong growth, strong labor market and inflation near our goal and taking account all the various risks around the outlook, I do expect further gradual increases in interest rates will best sponsor a sustained economic expansion." White House National Trade Council Director Peter Navarro claimed that a self-appointed group of billionaires related to Goldman Sachs or Wall Street pressed on the White House, claiming that it was a part of a Chinese government influence operation that weakens the president and the U.S. negotiating position. He called them unregistered foreign agents for supposedly interfering with negotiations and violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act, urging them to invest in Dayton, Ohio and America factory towns where a rebirth of manufacturing base is needed. Strong bipartisan pushes for firm and further actions against China. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer praised President Trump's higher tariffs against China's alleged taking advantage of the U.S. and said Democrats, Republicans, Americans of every political ideology, every region in the country should support these actions. In the meanwhile, he warns Trump administration not to let China play them and President Trump should not back off his pledges to punish Beijing. Most Democratic senators, including committee ranking members Bob Menendez, Foreign Relations, Sherrod Brown, Banking, and Ron Wyden, Finance, claim that Americans confront rampant theft of U.S. intellectual property, forced data storage localization policies, agricultural policies that disadvantage American farmers, dumping shoddy goods, restrictions on market access for U.S. service providers and manufacturers, and mercantilist industrial policies that have cost U.S. workers their jobs. They ask sanction on Chinese companies, such as ZTE, that has allegedly sold sensitive U.S. technologies to Iran and North Korea and repeatedly made false statements. Democrats call on putting American workers, farmers, businesses, innovation and national security ahead of China and remain steadfast in enforcing America's laws for claimed predatory and abusive behaviors. Ahead of the G20 negotiation, the senators asked the administration to stand tougher for pushing real meaningful structural reforms in China. The Republican Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley also condemned the allegedly increasing Chinese espionage and cheating against the U.S. He states China is a more real threat to American manufacturing and high-tech industries, claiming that regarding espionage, FBI Director Christopher Wray has said there's no country that's even close to China. China is claimed to be responsible for 50–80% of cross-border intellectual property theft worldwide, and over 90% of cyber-enabled economic espionage in the U.S. House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, a longtime critic of China, supported Trump administration's new tariffs and stated, U.S. must take strong, smart and strategic action against China's brazenly unfair trade policies. Must do much more to fight for American workers and products. Far more is need to confront the full range of China's bad behavior. Beijing's regulatory barriers, localization requirements, labor abuses, anti-competitive policy and many other unfair trade practices require a full and comprehensive response. Must show the moral courage to use its economic leverage to not only guarantee free trade for American products in Chinese markets, but also to advance human rights in China and Tibet. Republican House Ways and Means Committee Chair Kevin Brady said President Trump is right to take a hard line against China's claimed misbehavior, which have allegedly harmed American workers. Republican House Asia Pacific Subcommittee Chair Ted Yoho warned a brief reduction in the trade deficit will do nothing to solve the main challenges of the trade relationship and called for targeted sanctions on Chinese companies, non-tariff restrictions, and upgraded protection for U.S. and intellectual property innovation. The Democrat ranking member Brad Sherman urged his colleagues to keep position against most favored nation status for China. The Democratic Pelosi-led House is also considered to back President Trump's trade war against China and could push him to do more. Markets and industries. By early July 2018, there were negative and positive results already showing up in the economy as a result of the tariffs, with a number of industries showing employment growth while others were planning on layoffs. In anticipation of tariffs going into effect, stock prices in the US and China sustained significant losses for 4 to 6 weeks prior. Trade war fears had led to a bear market in China where by late June the total value of the country's stock markets was 20% lower than it had been at the beginning of 2018 when it reached record levels. The Japanese Nikkei also suffered a 3-week pullback. On July 6, when the tariffs went into effect, markets rebounded and rallied due to positive jobs report in the US. Asian markets similarly rebounded, ending the day in a high note. According to the Associated Press, the positive reaction to the tariffs in US and Asian markets was because of an end to uncertainty and, according to Investors Business Daily, because markets had largely priced in the impact. Nucor's John Ferriola said that even with the tariffs on steel, the cost of an average $36,000 car would go up about $160, less than half of 1%, while a can of beer would only cost an extra penny more. On December 4, 2018, the Dow Jones Industrial Average declined a near 600 points, to which some argue is in part due to the trade war. Following announcements of escalation of tariffs by the US and China, representatives of several major US industries expressed their fears of the effects on their businesses. Organizations critical of the intensifying trade war included National Pork Producers Council, American Soybean Association, and Retail Industry Leaders Association. Several mayors representing towns with a heavy reliance on the manufacturing sector also expressed their concerns. In September, a business coalition announced a lobbying campaign called Tariffs Hurt the Heartland to protest the proposed tariffs. Proponents of the increased U.S. tariffs included Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. China. International community. On June 1, 2018, after similar action by the U.S., the European Union launched WTO legal complaints against China's alleged forced ownership granting and usage of technology that is claimed to discriminate foreign firms and undermine the intellectual property rights of EU companies. They are allegedly forced to establish joint ventures in order to gain access to the Chinese market. The European Commissioner for Trade Cecilia Malmström said we cannot let any country force our companies to surrender this hard-earned knowledge at its border. This is against international rules that we have all agreed upon in the WTO. American, European and Japanese officials have discussed joint strategy and taken actions against unfair competition by China. The 2018 G20 summit concluded the multilateral trading system is currently falling short of its objectives. Necessary reform of the WTO to improve its functioning. President Trump signed the modified U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement in New York City on September 24, 2018 and then signed the revised U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement in Buenos Aires, Argentina on November 30. The USMCA contains an Article 32.10 which aims at preventing any non-market economy, especially China, to take advantage of the agreement. Jorge Guajardo, former Mexican ambassador to China, said one thing the Chinese have had to acknowledge is that it wasn't a Trump issue. It was a world issue. Everybody's tired of the way China games the trading system and makes promises that never amount to anything. Potential impact.